I'm Emily McCabe, and this is Fish and Game Changers, brought to you by Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. In this series, I join our staff in the field to learn more about what they do, why they love it, and what drives them to apply their time and talent to the Maine outdoors. In this final episode of Season 7, I caught up with Game Warden Corporal Chris McCabe to hear about his role in supporting Maine's private landowners across the state. Chris, along with his partner, Corporal Rick LaFlame, oversee Maine's Outdoor Partners program and work to help educate and influence outdoor users of all types to appreciate and protect one of our most precious resources, access to private land in Maine.
My name is Chris McCabe, and I'm a game warden corporal with the Maine Warden Service, one of two corporals in charge of landowner relations. I've been a game warden for about 16 years, started out in Franklin County, and then really kind of stayed in Franklin County, southern Franklin County, for about 15 years before taking a promotion to Augusta for this landowner relations corporal position. When I signed up to be a game warden, my theory was that I wanted to be the best game warden I could be, and to do that, catching intentional violators and treating them with respect and trying to gain their respect, and doing that throughout my career in the field was always my goal. To leave a subject with a summons and still being able to talk to them was always my goal in the field, which I felt like I was able to do.
Like many of us who seek out careers related to conservation, Chris was inspired to become a Maine game warden thanks to his love and passion for the outdoors, something that he developed as a young child.
I grew up in the state of Maine, loved the outdoors, really pushed my dad at a young age to go into the outdoors. I mean, I remember growing up as a little kid, and during deer season, my dad would get out of work and go hunt at my grandparents' property. And I remember always thinking that he was late after dark and he probably got a deer, which he never did. When I was a kid, he never got a deer. But I always thought that he would when he was late. And I remember that as a kid, always kind of thinking to myself, I was like, I really love the outdoors. And I remember once I was able to hunt at 10 years old, I really pushed to go take hunter safety course because I wanted to be in the woods. And I just had a drive for being in the outdoors. And really that's what kind of pushed me to want to be a Maine game warden. I had a friend in high school that his dad was a lieutenant with the Warden Service, and his sister actually became a game warden. And I always looked up to them and saw the career path that they took and really wanted to be in this line of work. Went to the University of Maine and studied wildlife ecology up there and got a bachelor's degree in wildlife, which really helped me in this aspect of work, not being a biologist, but being able to talk with complainants about issues with wildlife and kind of building my background to get hired by the Warden Service. I took a career path that was kind of unique with no law enforcement background or military background before I came to the Warden Service.
After completing his education and obtaining a degree in wildlife ecology, Chris had the opportunity to work in a few different roles that helped him further develop his skills and experience and prepare him for a successful career with Maine Warden Service.
I first started with Marine Resources, the state of Maine. I worked on the Kennebec River doing stock enhancement with alewives and shad, which are anadromous fish, which spawn in freshwater but live in the ocean. But after that, I took a position with the USDA Wildlife Services, and I learned to deal with nuisance wildlife throughout the state, which has helped me in my career path drastically, whether that was being a district game warden or in the landowner relations position that I'm in now, because I trap nuisance beaver. I work for paper companies, doing that for the USDA Wildlife Services. Worked at BIW with nuisance pigeons, different locations throughout the state, working with rabid animals. And it really taught me that there can be wildlife on this landscape that do become a nuisance to people, whether it's commercial industry or whether it's the private sector or just a local homeowner. And for me, that was really important, and it gave me a lot of experience at a young age before I applied for the warden service. And at the time that I was working there, my boss her husband was a Maine game warden. And he kind of took me under his wing because I didn't have some of the experience that I needed, and he taught me some things that I needed to know before I went through the process. And I was lucky enough to go through the process once and get hired.
If you have ever met Chris, or if you happen to have watched him on a few episodes of Northwoods Law, then you likely know how much he loves his job and cares about protecting not only the natural resources of the state, but the many people who enjoy spending time recreating in the outdoors. After 15 years of working as a district game warden and canine handler, he decided to take the opportunity to shift his focus to landowner relations. Now he is driven to do all that he can to provide support to Maine's private landowners in hopes that our natural resources and opportunity for outdoor recreation are there for many generations to come.
We in the state of Maine are super fortunate to have the access that we do. With 94% of the state of Maine privately owned, we really have to help these landowners out. So our job with the landowner relations position is to be a direct conduit for the landowners to talk to the Maine Warden Service, so that if they're having issues, they can reach out to myself or Rick LaFlame so that we can give them direct contact to another district game warden, or we can go solve the problem ourselves. And some of those problems could be recreational vehicles, snowmobile activity, ATV activity, could be nuisance wildlife. It could be us just being able to connect them with the right person. Could be they may have a question about habitat, and we may be able to push them over to Joe Roy from our beginning with habitat folks. And a lot of that is like, we want landowners to have a direct contact and be able to reach us, whether that's a law enforcement issue or whether that's something biological. It gives them someone to talk to, and we can kind of point them in the right direction.
Chris believes wholeheartedly that access to private land is a privilege that we all benefit from, and one that shouldn't be taken for granted.
We are using something else that someone else owns that they've given us access to. And really, from my perspective, it's not just the hunters and fishermen, anglers of the world. It's not just the ATVers. It's anyone that wants to access private land. If you're a forager, if you're a bird watcher, you need to go do that on somebody else's property in most places, because 94% of the state of Maine is privately owned. And that's very unique, probably to New England. Like, we kind of like say Maine, but it's more a New England thing that occurs, where a lot of other states, there's leased land or state or government land that's owned that you can recreate on. And in the state of Maine, we're primarily owned by forest products, large forest products, or small landowners anywhere from 5 to 500 acres. And that is what makes us unique, that we have such recreational activities here that rely solely on those landowners and the gift that they give us. And for people to realize that is our goal, so that we can go out there and continue to have that access. Not only is our natural resource, like the game that we have, such a precious resource to protect, but having the access from those landowners, it's a valuable resource that we need to protect and value. And the way to do that would be to protect the landowners that actually own that property. And whether that's helping them with issues like if we have to put a gate in or provide them with some road maintenance, anything like that, that they continue to allow access. It's everything that we rely on, not only as a state, but as a department.
Chris's biggest hope is that those who enjoy recreating in the outdoors will begin to appreciate what a delicate resource access to private land really is, and will be sure to go above and beyond to do what they can to help protect it.
treat it as if it were your own. This would be no different than walking on your own property or expecting what you would expect out of somebody else on your land. Really, it's a treasured gift. We need to respect that and go the extra mile, do the extra things to continue to allow that access. Don't be the person that gets it shut down. The biggest message that we can send is we all need to take part in this. It's a very fragile relationship that we have, and it could go one way or the other very quickly. And the importance of that is that you as a user, whatever you do, if you're using somebody else's land, use it as if it were your own. Or I know that you've said this in the past, but if you borrowed someone's car, you wouldn't bring it back with a bag of Doritos dumped all over it and an empty tank of gas. You'd bring it back to their house and it would be clean and it'd have a full tank of gas. And use it like that, because that is what leaves the impression. We never get the call that somebody went above and beyond and closed the gate behind them or picked up trash. We get the call that there's trash on their property and they want to shut their land down. And that's the importance of it, because I don't think the hunters or anglers or anyone that we work with within our department expects to get a thank you for doing that. But the thank you is that you get that continued use of the land.
And when it comes to common issues that result in landowners having no choice but to close access to their property, there are some things that Chris and other game wardens across the state see happening on the regular.
By far, the biggest culprit of getting land shut down is litter and land abuse, whether it's ATVs or trucks going on people's property and causing damage, physical damage. Anything that can create the appearance is going to get land shut down, whether that's going into a big mud hole, going into an area and dumping a refrigerator off because they didn't want to pay the extra $5 to $10 at the transfer station, and they just thought it would be easier to get it out on somebody else's land. That's all an impact on our, not only ecology or the environment, it's an impact on that landowner. And every year we, as a department, clean up on average about 37 ton of trash from the main landscape, and that's not including the amount of tires that we clean up. And really what we see is anything that becomes a cost to someone going to a transfer station, if it's easier for them to take it and put it on someone else's property, they will do it because they don't want to pay the extra money to recycle it.
So in addition to sort of the correlation you're making between the cost of disposing trash and that leading to people dumping it on other people's property, what do you think some of the other motivation or reason that people have to abuse others' land, whether it's tearing it up with their ATV, or what do you think drives people to make that decision?
A lot of people are lazy and they don't want to go the extra mile. The other thing is it's opportunity. Typically, like when you see illegal dumping sites, they're a spot where people turn off on the side of the road. It's a spot where there's a big guardrail that goes into a ditch. It's an opportunity for them to be like, oh, this is a quick spot that I can get rid of this. And that's no different than the poachers that we chase after. They're opportunists. They're looking for an opportunity. If that opportunity presents itself, they're gonna take advantage of it. And that could be putting up an illegal tree stand on a property owner. There are a lot of property owners that are large property owners in the state of Maine that are non-residents, and they could be taken advantage of because they're not around all the time. So someone could take advantage of them that way. But that seems to be the big thing is opportunity.
In your role, I'm sure you see mostly the bad, because once something has happened to a landowner that's caused them a problem, they're reaching out to you. But like you said, most of the time, the good things aren't necessarily being brought to your attention just because of the nature of your work. But I'm guessing it's not all bad. In fact, it's probably more good than it is bad. Have you had any experiences or anything that comes to mind where you've seen a land user really doing the right thing, or a landowner who's overcome an issue of abuse that has kind of gone in the right direction after that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like our ATV clubs, our snowmobile clubs in the state of Maine are super active, and they understand that they rely heavily on these landowners in order to have the trail systems that we have in the state of Maine, which are probably like the largest east of the Mississippi for snowmobiles. I mean, we're a snowmobile destination. It's Maine. And ATVs, we're an ATV destination. And those clubs do a really good job not only reaching out to the landowners to get access, but maintaining those relationships with them and checking on the landowners and working with them to solve issues. And typically when it gets to us, it like you said, it's to the point where it's kind of boiling over, I guess would be the best term. But you see that when like I go to the ATV Maine banquet, go to Maine Snowmobile Association, or you go to a club meeting, and you see the appreciation that they have for landowners. I was just at a local snowmobile club landowner appreciation dinner the other night, and overwhelmingly, they were super happy that people can recreate on their land, and the club was super supportive, and that's why they put the dinner on for them. And the landowners aren't asking for much. They didn't ask to have dinner with that club, but the club realizes that that's important to them. And they do a very good job maintaining those relationships, which allows us to have what we have. And there are situations where landowners have overcome issues. I have a landowner in Auburn. He had over 6 tons of shingles dumped on his property. He has 300 acres in Auburn, Maine, which is, like, if you think about 300 acres in Auburn, Maine, it's a suburb of Lewiston, somewhat of a city, and that's pretty expansive land. And we went over there to help him out and cleaned up the shingles, and he wants to leave his land open. He wants to leave it open to everything. He wants hikers, bikers, he wants snowmobilers, ATVers, he wants hunters, fishermen, and he called me the other day and he had more trash dumped on his land. And to sit there and think about like that this gentleman leaves his land open and wants to continue to, and wants to actually put a parking area in so that people have better parking to access it. It's pretty it's very remarkable that there are landowners out there that can have that understanding, that they realize the significance that they have on these recreators. And there's countless, you can't even put a quantity to those landowners out there just like that realize that they either have an interest in the sport, or they just have an interest in the state bringing in that revenue, or they just have an interest in people enjoying those opportunities because maybe they did as a younger kid.
One easy way that you can show your support for Maine's private landowners is to become an outdoor partner. This is a small contribution you can make each year by adding it onto your hunting or fishing license purchase, or you can visit mefishwildlife.com/outdoor partners to sign up and purchase Outdoor Partners logo items to show others you care and appreciate the privilege. Revenue from the program helps Chris and Rick to fund projects across the state to clean up, repair, or prevent damage to private property.
The Outdoor Partners program is important because that's revenue that we can use to help landowners out. It could be us putting a gate in, helping a landowner out, putting game cameras up to catch intentional violators, and anything like that. It's just, it allows us to give back to those landowners and help them out the best way that we can. And our biggest thing with the Outdoor Partners program is we want everyone to realize we don't want just the hunters, anglers, and ATVers of the world that we mostly interact with. We want the birders, the foragers, the mountain bikers, the kayakers, the hikers, and bikers to realize that they're still a part of this. And to become an outdoor partner, it's important, because otherwise we're not going to have the access that we do to these hiking trails. There's some state land out there, but it's very limited.
There is no doubt that we all play a role in protecting Maine's delicate and complicated tradition of public access to private land. If you enjoy listening and learning through podcasts, and you feel compelled to take a deeper look at private land access in Maine, then you're in luck. Chris will be hosting a new podcast series called Private for Public, which will be launching later this summer.
We're going to start the Private for Public podcast. It'll be some stories from landowners in Maine, some user groups. and also showing some stories throughout the country to kind of highlight how lucky we are in the state of Maine. The idea is to get the word out that we recreate on private land that's open to the public. And without that, we really wouldn't have what we have today. And like I think about moose hunting in the state of Maine, I think about deer hunting in the state of Maine, and I think about the impact that that has on the state in everybody coming here. And I really want to highlight that by bringing on people that have an understanding of that and talking about some of the issues that are going on out there. Like obviously there are some landowners that have had some bad experiences, and I think that people need to hear about that. And there's also people who have those positive experiences that continue to allow access. And I think the importance of that getting out to the public is going to maintain the balance that we have and the appreciation for landowners to continue the aspect that we have today.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to learn more about the ways you can become a responsible private land user and help support Maine's private landowners, then head on over to mefishwildlife.com/outdoor partners. This is the final episode of Season 7, but I'll be back soon for more adventures in the field with members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife team, exploring what it is that makes them a game changer. In the meantime, be sure to tune in to the upcoming season of Private for Public, hosted by Corporal Chris McCabe, launching in early September and available at mefishwildlife.com/privateforpublic or streaming on your favorite listening app.